In the quiet and seemingly idyllic town of Hollowbrook, where the autumn leaves fell in eerie silence and the mist often hung heavy like a shroud, lived a man named Daniel Grayson. He was an unremarkable figure, an accountant by profession, leading an ordinary life with his wife, Emily. Yet, for all the mundanity that characterized his existence, a sinister undercurrent was about to weave its way into his reality. It all began innocuously enough, with an offhand comment from Emily. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, she gazed at him with an unsettling intensity and remarked, "You know, Daniel, we all wear masks, hiding our true selves." Her voice was soft, but the words carried a disconcerting weight that settled in the pit of his stomach. As the days crept by, Daniel began to notice a pattern that sent chills down his spine. People he had known for years, friends, acquaintances, even strangers, seemed to echo Emily's sentiments. The postman would pause at his doorstep, eyes glinting as he muttered, "Beneath the skin, we're all the same." The local grocer, arranging shelves with meticulous care, would glance at him, a sinister smile playing on his lips, and say, "Deep down, we're all connected." These utterances wormed their way into Daniel's thoughts, breeding a paranoia that nestled itself within his psyche. Whenever he confronted these individuals, they would blink in apparent innocence, their expressions clearing as if the unsettling words had never left their lips. Doubt gnawed at him, a gnawing suspicion that he was either losing his grip on reality or that he was ensnared in a sinister web of deceit. The descent into darkness was gradual, yet inevitable. Emily's eyes, once warm and inviting, now held an eerie glint as she murmured, "Underneath, we're all fragile." The mailman's voice dripped with ominous undertones as he intoned, "Sometimes, sacrifices must be made for the greater good." The butcher's grin grew malevolent, his gaze fixed on Daniel's trembling hands, as he whispered, "The time for reckoning draws near." Night after night, Daniel's dreams became haunted tapestries of blood and shadows, his waking hours consumed by an obsession with the enigmatic words that seemed to swirl around him. He locked himself inside his home, the walls a sanctuary from the encroaching threat he couldn't quite grasp. He peeked through curtains, observing neighbors congregating in hushed clusters, eyes following him like predators tracking prey. His world became a labyrinth of terror and suspicion. Was he trapped in a nightmare of his own making, a victim of his fraying sanity, or was there a malevolent plot unfolding that only he could perceive? The boundaries between reality and delusion blurred until they merged into an incomprehensible mosaic of fear. Then, on a moonlit night, an envelope arrived at his doorstep, an invitation bearing the names of his family and friends. An intervention, they called it, a gathering to address his spiraling paranoia. Trembling, Daniel stepped into his living room, where faces he had known all his life awaited him. Their gazes held a disconcerting camaraderie, their expressions inscrutable masks. As they spoke, their words wove a tapestry of menace, every sentence laden with veiled threats and unsettling promises. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and dread. Were they truly there to help him, or was this a facade concealing their malevolent intentions? Time seemed to slow as the tension in the room grew palpable. The air was thick with uncertainty, a suffocating embrace that left Daniel gasping for clarity. And then it happened, the scream, piercing through the stifling silence. The sound reverberated, bouncing off the walls, leaving a trail of shock and fear in its wake. Was it Daniel's own voice, wrenched from the depths of his fractured mind, a primal howl of desperation? Or was it something more sinister, a reflection of the impending doom he had feared all along? As the echoes of that haunting cry faded, the room stood frozen in time, an enigmatic tableau of anticipation. And so, Hollowbrook's tale remained suspended, an enigma that defies resolution. Did Daniel succumb to the clutches of madness, or did the town's murky undercurrents finally engulf him? As the wind moans through the streets and the shadows dance their macabre ballet, one question lingers in the air, unresolved. Are we ever truly safe from the darkness lurking beneath our seemingly ordinary lives? The truth may forever elude us, lost in the echoing corridors of uncertainty. I am 18F and about to leave for college. When I was younger, I had very intense fears at night and also insomnia. I remember for years I had to sleep with a system, windows and curtains closed, closet closed, door open for light, but as long as there wasn't a view into another room. I would also place numerous pillows on both sides on me so that I could feel something there. Even with all that, I would lay on my back covered in blankets. I usually was too scared to move and stayed still there and sweat. For a while, I was worried that I would always be scared and couldn't see myself as an adult being okay at night. My mom has told me that it was just something that took my brain longer to mature in. I was also an anxious child, and I will explain more how it never fully went away. By the time I was 14, I had finally been able to close my door and be fine most nights. This was around the same time I had developed bad depression for reasons I don't need to get into, but from 14 to 16, I was in a very dark place, so I had no fear of the dark. To be honest, for a while I wanted to die, so I had no fear for things coming for me in the night. I am so grateful for how far I have come, and I am still healing. But for some reason, I am scared again. I am about to live on my own, and I am scared of the dark. I should get into the specifics of what I am scared of, because obviously I am not stupid and have attempted many times over the years to convince myself that nothing is there. I am starting to think that it's there even if I don't see it. I can just feel presence, which horrifies me. It's only demons, of all shapes and forms, and my imagination was always what scared me the most. Sure, when I was younger, I would cry for days if a kid at school told me a scary story. I even remember seeing a picture on a magazine of a vampire or something, and I barely slept for weeks. Some images were hard to get out of my head. My head was always the worst horror movie because I could imagine demons with different faces and could never turn it into art even though I paint. I didn't watch a single horror movie till I was 14 or 15. I see the appeal now and think it's fun to get jumped scared from a dumb movie with friends. Only with friends, though. I haven't seen most of the classics. One time when I was 10, my soccer team had a slumber party and threw on Poltergeist even though I begged them not to. A couple of them still make fun of me for sobbing in the kitchen, which lead to my nose bleeding and causing a scene. I also have always gotten random nosebleeds to this day. And a little of my hair falls out every day. I also was only scared of make-believe stuff, which is weird. Before I watched my first horror movie, I had seen a few thrillers and documentaries on serial killers. Sure, sometimes I would feel scared of a man coming into my room at night. But I was more interested in true crime than scared. I don't necessarily like gore, but I would be more disturbed if I saw a demon on the screen. Anyway, I could always feel things in my room in the corner or just there looking at me. You know how sometimes in the corner of your eye you see a shadow figure and you look and it's nothing? Just your mind playing tricks. I am starting to think it isn't my mind. A few weeks ago, I started having trouble sleeping again. I am not sure why. It could be the Reddit stories I keep seeing about interactions with entities. Some of them seem real. I also just got out of a long situationship with a heavy Christian. Between the way he talked and the stories, I am scared that demons are following me. Maybe I am crazy and just need to chill out, but should I see a psychologist or something? I've had panic attacks before, but I had a gnarly one last week because of all this. It was past 3 a.m. and I still couldn't sleep. For the past year, I haven't gone more than a day or so without smoking wood. That night, I had nothing. It always helps me sleep. I started at 14 and I do it every day now. Before anyone tries to say that's the reason, you're wrong. I use it medicinally and it's helped me. So yeah, it usually knocks me out, and I am mature enough to admit I'm fairly reliant on it. I can hardly even remember what happened that night. But it was one of those stuck with your thoughts moment, and it kept spiraling until I was in the bathroom crying because I was tired but too scared to be back in my room. I had to wake up my mom. I really didn't know what to do. We turned on a documentary and I calmed down but didn't sleep until 5 a.m. I share a room with my younger sister and she at her friend's house that night. Last night I asked her to lay next to me because I could see myself staying up all night again. I even opened the door. I am moving into my own room in the dorms next week. What should I do? Should I sage my room? Hope my new one has good energy? Go to church? I really don't know, and I have struggled with faith. I went to Catholic school in elementary, middle, but it wasn't until I started to lose faith that I wasn't scared anymore. Please help. My mother never allowed me in the basement today. I found out the horrifying truth why. My sister died when I was 8 years old. I was very interested in her death. One day I asked my mother, why did my sister die? She replied, stop asking this nonsense, every time when I asked her. I knew she was hiding something from me. I always wanted to go to the basement, but my mother always didn't let me go there. I always argued with her, and sometimes she would throw chairs at me. I needed to go down there, I always told myself. Something was definitely off with her. Sometimes I would hit her because she didn't tell me. One day I went to my friend's house. We talked about it and found an idea. We would go in the basement when she would leave, but my mother was almost always home. So we didn't have that much opportunities. One day my mother left and we took some time to get ready. When we unlocked the door, she just came in the house. After getting several chairs in my head, she stopped. We got the opportunity finally after a few weeks. When we went in, we saw something very shocking. It was my sister.